out there, and welcome to another episode of the Places Will Go show. Now, look, as you know, we interview some amazing guests each week to learn about the ups and downs in their career, or today, maybe aptly speaking, their squiggly career. And look, today is absolutely no less, as we get to speak to none other, and I think this is the first for us, a Sunday Times best-selling author, Helen Tupper. She's not with her partner in crime today, Sarah Ellis. She is dearly missed as she's down and unwell at the moment. But nevertheless, we continue, as I'm sure Helen will allude to, a bit of an in-joke going on right now. Look, Helen is an absolute exceptional talent and really quite like no other. She's probably one of the most renowned people that I know and traverses marketing, business, and personal development like no other that I've come across before. I'm sure she will come on to this, but she's just written her second book. It is your second book, isn't it, Helen?
Indeed.
Don't know with you. Every time I speak to you, it seems like the list of things go on and on.
We're not doing another one yet. Just number two. Right.
But it's number two. It's You Coach You, which is absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure we're going to come on to that. In addition, she's certainly kicked something off. What's on my bucket list, having done a TED Talk last year as well, which is pretty cool. So what an amazing impact that she's already had. Today, we're going to learn the backstory of how Helen was able to achieve all that she has. So I'm really excited to get started with this talk. And, beyond that, I just want to say a huge, massive thank you of appreciation to Helen. She's always been so kind through the years with her time, and it's just massively appreciated. So Helen, welcome to the Places Will Go show. What an honor to have you on.
Thank you very much. What a kind introduction, Richie. I feel like I've got a lot to live up to now. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Well, no, Helen, thank you. Fantastic to have you on. You've inspired me an awful lot through the years. And I have to say, I've stolen quite a few things of yours with pride, including the notion of squiggliness. So I use the word. And in fact, it probably runs a little bit through the concept of this show, in terms of nothing's a straight line journey. But fantastic to have you on. To get us started, 2022 to me feels like an important year, finally emerging from the pandemic, hopefully. But in any sense, it just feels a bit different, a bit more positive, a bit more energy. So how's 2022 starting for you? Any green shoots? How are you feeling about the world?
Oh gosh, Mark, how am I feeling about the world? Well, how's it starting is probably an easier question. So it's starting with a book launch. So as Richie said, our book came out last week. And so January is sort of consumed with getting the work that we have been focused on for sort of the last 18 months, a book that we wrote in a pandemic, which was, a challenge in itself, because you're having to write chapters and review chapters over Zoom all the time, rather than in a room with Post-it notes. And this is just a different process that you have to learn and how to do it. So January is all about getting that work out into the world. And then this slightly nervous moment of waiting to see whether it's doing what we want it to, which is to be a useful source of career support for people. And so it's a very sort of climatic moment of all this energy goes into January, which is a funny month anyway, isn't it? And then this sort of, well, people probably need at least a week to read it. So you're just sort of sat there waiting to go, will they like it? Will they like it? And I think the measure for us of people liking it is when they show us their scribbles in their book. So we're sort of at that point now of this climatic point and trying to find out whether all people like it. And then I guess the rest of the year is this sort of opportunity and a challenge for us as a business at the same time, which is the opportunity is our work seems to be resonating with people. Squiggly seems to be something that people are like, yes, I'm ready for Squiggly. I need support with Squiggly. I want the tools that you talk about. So there's this big pull on what we are sharing and creating, which is fantastic. And then there is how do we keep up what we want it to do, to feel authentic and feel useful, but also have time to breathe and time to learn. My worst nightmare is that I'm supposed to be a thought leader with no time to think. So there's this kind of challenge at the moment of a business that's scaling and resonating and helping people, which is amazing. But then we need to be learn-it-alls and be curious and keep connecting in order to keep improving what we're doing. And it's a funny sort of challenge. It's a brilliant challenge to manage, but it's definitely a challenge to manage.
I want to take a few steps back here. I mean, what an amazing journey. And like Mark, I've been truly inspired watching you girls just go from strength to strength. It's been awesome. I've got a big smile on my face, everyone, because I really, really just feel strongly about it. But I want to take a step back for a second, because both you and Sarah had super high flying successful careers. You know, you were the archetype of successful career women in many ways. And I'm sure there were squiggles along the way, which I'm sure we can come to. But what made you decide that there was a moment in time to then start on the path less traveled, should we say, and move away from, I think your last role was the marketing director at Microsoft. So, I mean, what made you make that firm decision at that moment in time to go down your own path?
I think there were two firm decisions. There was a decision in 2013 to start a side project, and then there was a decision in 2018 to scale it into a business. There were like these two key things, and there were different things that drove those decisions. So in 2013, the side project decision was I don't really know like how conscious a thing it really was. So I was working at Virgin. I was sort of launching a new business called Virgin Red for Virgin at the time, and I think I felt quite liberated. I'd been in an organization before that felt a little bit bureaucratic. I hadn't had a lot of time. I was traveling all the time. And then suddenly I was working for Virgin. It was full of energy. Everyone had an idea, and I had a bit of time that I hadn't had before. And so there was something in that. And Sarah was at Sainsbury's. She was head of corporate social responsibility at the time. We'd gone to university together. And I think we were just at a similar place in our careers, bit of space, energy to create something, a desire to do it together, which we hadn't done anything together. We'd just sort of known each other and grown together, I suppose. And now we wanted to grow something together. And so we just started this side project. We were passionate about career development. We were passionate about helping the people who worked for us to be at their best at work. And we were mentoring people. And we were like, well, why don't we just do it together? You do some stuff, I do some stuff. We'd been sharing the stuff that we were doing with each other to help each other behind the scenes. I'd been like, oh, I've got this spreadsheet on personality profiling. You should try it out with your team. And Sarah had been like, oh, I've got on this course. You should do this. So we were already like sharing this stuff with each other. And then we just thought, why don't we, everyone seems to have some quite similar challenges about, what they want to do with their career and not knowing where they're going. Why don't we just share some of the stuff at a bigger scale? And so, yeah, we started the side project, and it was evening courses in London. Mark was one of the very first people to help us go from an evening course in London to a concept we could take into a business. So I'm eternally grateful for that confidence building moment to sort of change a slight direction. I'm not even sure, Mark, where we would have gone if you hadn't given us that confidence and that opportunity. So thank you for that. And then it just sort of grew. We just sort of followed it, but it was never really meant to be a business. I loved my job at Virgin. I loved my job at Microsoft. I was studying and I've had my two children. And then the 2018 moment was sort of like the next decision. So at that point in time, it had grown. I was using my holiday to deliver all these sessions in companies. I had two children. Microsoft were talking to me about my progression within Microsoft, and there were exciting opportunities there. The podcast had grown, and Penguin came to us with a book deal. And it was probably the point in time I thought, you can't do all of this now. You can't do all of it. It was just, you're not going to do it well. I think I'd stretched myself, and it had gone well, but there was this point that I was like, this rubber band's going to snap if you don't make a decision. And I was trying to think about, what aligned with my values, what was the work I wanted to do, what was the impact I wanted to have, and also what was the work I wanted my children to see me doing. And it sounds really funny, but I do remember thinking, at night I'd be working late on various presentations for Microsoft products, which is all great. But I was thinking, but I want the children to see me. I work a lot. I love my work, and I want them to see this impact that you can have through your work. I want them to see what work can be. And I realized that I was probably smiling more and energized more by the impact that I was making on my side project. And I thought, you just got to go do that. That's what work can be. That's what you can do with work. And that's what your children can see that work can be. And I think it was something in that gave me like that impetus to make that quite hard decision then.
Gosh, I had a little bit of a lump in my throat when you talk about that through the lens of your children's eyes. It was obviously a great decision. You talked about way back when, and so I was very fortunate to come along to one of your sessions and thought there was something special there. And so it has been so. Some of that specialness was the partnership. There's just a little bit of a chemistry there. So, Richie and I have been referenced as the Ant and Dec and all that sort of stuff. We laugh and joke about it a little bit, but how do you describe your partnership? Is Batman and Robin to each other? Or what's What's your metaphor and what's special in your partnership with Sarah?
What do you know? When we were before, it was a side project, and I'd be going to various marketing events, and I'd you'd sit next to someone at a table and you chat to them about what you do, and people would start saying the same thing happened to Sarah. People would say, "I think, Helen, you would really get on with Sarah Ellis," and I'd be like, "Mm-hmm." And then other people would say the same thing to Sarah. They'd be like, "You'd love Helen Tupper at Virgin," and so I think there's something in our connection that we feel and that other people see that we would kind of get onto each other. I think we're probably both quite intense and driven and passionate about people, and that's quite visible to other people. But I do think there is something special in the dynamic between Sarah and I think it is our difference and respect for each other. So Sarah and I are really different. She is an introvert, I'm an extrovert. She's a real thinker, I'm a real doer. We come at problems from a very different perspective. We bring very different strengths. We have similar passions, actually, but what we bring and how we bring it is very different. But which could cause friction, actually, and occasionally it does. We'll have debates about it. But we really respect each other, and I respect all the things that Sarah brings. I respect her differences. I value it. I appreciate it hugely. And then you've also got what is now like a 20-year friendship. Like, we met at university, and Sarah is the most supportive. She's like the most challenging person I know, but she's also the most supportive person I know. And I think there's just this combination of a foundation of friendship, a lot of respect, and quite a lot of difference. And I don't know, there's some kind of like alchemy in it. I don't know, but it's, and we also say it was friends first. Like, that is the most, because we know that that's sort of like the secret sauce. It's friends first in our business, which I think other people would say, don't go into business with your friends. And I would say, I wouldn't go into business if she wasn't my friend.
Just to come in there, what you said there about high challenge, high support, just sprung my mind back to Kim Scott on Radical Candor. And if anybody listening in hasn't caught that book, I think it's a great book. And the crux is you really challenge somebody, not because you don't care, but because you care deeply, and that shines through. Thank you, Helen. Back to you, Richie.
I love thinking when you talk about secret sauce, and I actually think you guys, the combination of both of you really create the secret sauce for each other, and I think it's just such a special bond that it's so apparent and it's so transparent to the world that it actually just, gives you guys a bit of an exponential sort of factor to things. It's almost hard for me to describe because it feels so synonymous now, Helen and Sarah. It's just brilliant. It's really cool. I want to come on to the concept of side hustles, 2013 for you, your side project. And I'm sure you talk about this or allude to this both in your work and your books. But how would you recommend advise someone kind of, if they're thinking about this, if they have a moment in time, if they have a potential co-founder, if they have somebody there, an idea, but they're too afraid, a lot of people are too afraid to jump off and do something a bit different. So, what would you say to them about kind of pursuing side hustles?
Act. So that was my first thing. I know that sounds really simple, but you sort of have to just get started with it. I think I wouldn't try. I mean, I'm not kind of someone who strives for perfection, so it's probably easier for me to say, but I think that in starting a side project or a side hustle, the first thing is to sort of act and to think that sort of that progress, that getting started is more important than perfection. If I look at what we started with and what we're doing now, like, it's come on leaps and bounds. But to be honest, I look at what we were doing 2 years ago when we started doing virtual sessions, and it's come on an awful lot. So it's always, it's always growing, it's always changing. But I think one of the things that stops people from getting started is they have this vision of what they want this thing to be, to look like. And that's really hard unless you've experimented a bit with it. So I think maybe don't treat it as I'm launching my new career and I'm starting with it as a side project. Just like, I'm experimenting with something that gives me energy. And and it might work and it might not. I've had actually in parallel a few different side projects along the way. So, you know, I started something called the New Work Network. That would have been about 2016, 2017. And it was a way to spark a conversation about flexible working and accelerate adoption and learn for people. And I was thinking, what could this be? I didn't know that. I think that's a really good question. What could this be? Not, I know what I want it to be. And that ended up being a series of events where I met lots of different people, including some of the people that I was running that kind of community with. And then after a while, I thought, actually, I'm going to let them take this idea and do what they will with it. And I'm going to continue on my thing. It actually led to a book deal. So there were some benefits, there were some unexpected benefits from engaging with that. And I also think that's the point, you know, be open to where these things can take you. I think if you try to perfect it, if you try to be too prescriptive with it, you're going to limit your opportunities, are going to limit your learning. And side projects are amazing for learning, like stretching your strengths, using with different people in different ways. And even if that's all it's ever going to be, even if it doesn't, you know, become a Series A funding channel for you, that kind of stuff, even if it's just a source for learning and development or meeting new people, there is quite a lot of value in that in your career.
100%. It's probably fair to say that, Richie, this little old show, which we love and enjoy, started out as a little bit of a side project in the early days of the pandemic. So there we go. So, Helen, the undercurrent of pretty much everything you do is to help people. So there's a huge spirit of generosity that runs through what you do. And so I'm just keen to understand, where do you think that comes from? I think it's probably in all of us to some extent, but where do you think that spirit of generosity comes from? Is there an origin?
Is there an origin of it? Well, I mean, there's a psychological principle behind it, I suppose. It's much bigger than me, which is the concept of the helper's high, which is that we feel good when we help people, like as all of us do. Like that's and I think in my career, I always tried to help people, whether that's like someone new coming into a business and you sort of take them under your wing and you're like trying to introduce them to people, or whether it is somebody who wants some feedback on a marketing campaign. Like my instinct is to try and help someone else, definitely not to compete with somebody. That doesn't appeal to me at all. Like I'm going to try and be better than someone. I always want to help people to be their best in the thing that they're doing. So I think I have that in me, but I think we all have that in us. I think what I have got to is I've found this thing that has helped me to amplify the help. Like as in when I was in marketing, I hopefully helped people with what they were trying to do in their marketing jobs. But I think I've just found this thing in career development that I'm good at and is even more helpful than things I've done before. And I think it's become more rewarding for me. And I've tried to get better and better at it so that the help that I give can be better and better to people. So, you know, we often talk about strengths being self-fulfilling. Like when you find out, you know, what that thing is that gives you energy that you want to be known for, and you put it out into the world, you know, you're generous with it, and then you kind of get better at it, more and more opportunities start to come your way. So then ironically, you get even better at it. And it becomes self-fulfilling. And I think at some point I just found this thing that gives me energy that I wanted to get great at and be known for. And now I've put it out into the world and I'm helping more people, and then I'm getting better at it and helping more, and I'm just doing that cycle at the moment. So yeah, it feels really positive, and hopefully I'm growing and learning and making an impact for other people at the same time.
Yeah, lovely.
And interestingly, you know, your latest book is all about people helping themselves. Well, certainly that's what the title alludes to anyway. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about You Coach You. What was the journey like? I mean, you talked about the process of writing during COVID as well, which I'm intrigued about. So perhaps a little bit about the book and maybe a little bit behind the scenes.
Yeah. So the book. Where did the book come from? So our mission at our business is to make careers better for everybody. And one of the ways that we think we do that is we democratize career development. So for a really long time, development has sort of been limited by the ladder. So it was like, well, when you get to that level, you can unlock this door of a course, or maybe get to the next level and you might even unlock a coach. And I think because we were fortunate in the careers that we had, we'd unlocked quite a lot of those doors and we went, wow, this is really valuable. But the vast majority of people are not getting this level of support. And that doesn't seem, well, definitely doesn't seem right for the individual, but it also doesn't really seem right for the organization, because that's where your volume of people are. And then you're not investing in them to help them to be at their best. There's a strange thing going on there. And so we were like, well, let's take this stuff that's limited by the ladder and let's try and democratize career development. And we're trying to do that with lots of different things, but coaching is a key one, because there is a commercial challenge in coaching, which is that even if an organization says, Helen, we're with you, we want to democratize development, coaching with an expert, a qualified coach, is expensive. Like average cost £400 an hour. Most organizations cannot afford to take a qualified coach and make that accessible to everybody, which is why there are actually some really good virtual models for coaching. But we think that coaching with an expert is still valuable, but even more valuable is if we take that capability and we democratize it. We help you to coach you, and we're not trying to replace coaches. They're brilliant. I am a coach, but how much better could people's conversations be with their managers and their mentors and their coaches, if they have one, if they've taken a bit of time and had the tools to be able to coach themselves? So that was really like the thing at the core of the book, was how can we take these tools and make them accessible to everybody? It supports the work that we do with organizations and the whole mission of the business. So it feels very core. It feels very, very core to us and what we're trying to do. The writing process was a challenge. It was a real challenge because we couldn't be in a room with each other. I think we had one day that was like in between lockdowns. There was this one day we went to Sarah's house and we've got these giant, I can see one of them in front of me now. We've got these giant yellow Post-its, and we're at Sarah's house and we filled the wall with these giant yellow Post-its of what we thought each chapter should be, and what we thought the main career challenges were that needed some coaching tools, like relationships at work or time or purpose, for example. So we kind of sketched that all out, and I think that was like the only day we had together for this kind of creative spark for the writing. And everything else was Helen write a chapter, email it to Sarah, Sarah reviews a chapter, changes 50% of what Helen's written, sends it back. Helen gets frustrated, why have you changed that? And rechanges it back at Sarah. So actually I think we probably had more back and forth than we did previously, because we were sending each other these chapters rather than doing it in a room. Probably more moments of friction because of that. But I actually think the book is better because of it, ironically, because there was so much reviewing between us and building on each other's work and trying to find that unified voice when one was written one chapter and one of us had written another. I think the outcome, in spite of the friction, is a better book. It's a better book. It's a more considered book. It's a book we've debated more between us, to make it helpful. So yeah, hopefully all's well that ends well.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a massive bestseller. And what a day. I mean, if you just had that single day really to get the crux of it done, shaping it, architecting it, then what a day. So you're in the game of sort of igniting a spark in people. Through the pandemic, have you observed that people are more revved up about personal development, less revved up? I think for many people at times anyway, there's been exhaustion and the fire has burnt a little less brightly, if we're all being honest. What impact do you think it's had on people's desire around their own development?
Oh, massive. I've actually been working with two organisations on some research over the last couple of weeks, actually. So LinkedIn have just come up with some research about people's career confidence and desire for a change. Like actually 9 in 10 people at the moment are feeling quite confident about their career. They feel like they're in a place where they want to make a change. And then the work that I've been doing in the Department of Education has been all around like portfolio careers and pivots, like the number of people that are actually interested, like 1 in 4 people are now interested in doing some kind of portfolio thing. So people are feeling confident, they're ready for some kind of change, they're open to maybe a slightly different model of their career. And I think that the pandemic, I mean, that was all slightly under the surface anyway. I think people were sort of, slightly embracing Squiggly. The pandemic has definitely accelerated it. And I think part of the reason is sort of, I think choice and control would be my 2 things that has happened a little bit out of the pandemic. So because some of the noise of work has gone, like I used to commute, I used to go to an office where there were lots of people and I'd have things that I was doing outside of work. And because that has all been quietened down, I think, a little bit over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years now, grief. What has been dialed up is the volume of people's actual job, the job that I'm actually doing on my own, in a room, in my home. And I think that's led to people questioning, if this is work now, because the other stuff was sort of distracting, really. It was quite a nice distraction, but it was a distraction. But if this is the work that I do, is this the work I want to do? Is this the best work for me? I think people have kind of questioned that. And they've also had a bit more control over it, even though sometimes they might look at their diary and be like, I just have back-to-back Zoom meetings all day or Teams meetings. They have had a bit more control over, how they're working and, maybe what they're working on. And so I think that now is also paired with choice. Is a very buoyant market for job seekers at the moment. And so they are seeing different models of work, they're seeing different opportunities for work, maybe some roles they wouldn't have considered before because it couldn't be done remotely, now are unlocked. And so, yeah, we are definitely seeing, as a result of that choice, that control, that people are starting to reconsider what their career means to them. And, tools like strengths and values and how I leverage my network are all becoming things that people are more open to, help me amazing if, or help me whoever it is, because I've got some questions and I'm ready to ask them now.
It's funny. I think there's definitely been a heightened sense of self-reflection across these 18 months around what we do in all aspects of our lives. I actually wonder to what extent have organizations woken up to what is really truly happening in this space. So if on the one hand, you've got people embracing Squiggly, do you think organizations have a lot more catch up to do in this respect to really start to create what a Squiggly career could look like for people who potentially they want to attract?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we work with lots of brilliant organizations who are sort of on the bus. But I think the thing that we would love to work more on is how can people squiggle and stay? That's the thing that we really, really want to do, which requires organizations to really embrace and be aware of people's skills and how they could be, transferred to different parts of the organization, but also to make those opportunities very visible and available. Because sometimes you have people who, they're kind of like the arrowheads, they're probably people like both of you who are like, okay, I might be in this function at the moment, but I can see that I could learn and add value over there. And even though there's not a clear way for me to open that door, I'm going to push it open. I'm going to build some connections. I'm going to find my way. And so there'll be people like you that have got the confidence to be able to do that. But a lot of people haven't. They're like, I think I could go over there. But because it's not visible or easy to do, they end up staying where they are. And so I think organizations have to create opportunities, whether it's projects or, you have things like kind of the way that Google sometimes do like the 10, 20% time that gives people to work in a different area. I think they have to make it easier and more visible for people to squiggle internally. eBay have a great way of doing this. Unilever have a great way of doing this. It was almost like project type work where people can try out different roles in the organization. And then I think we need Squiggly Career stories. So we need to understand that people's success isn't linear, that actually a lot of people have done quite a lot of different things, and that the more that we make that known by people, the more people think, oh, there's not actually one way to succeed. I can go over there and go over there and go over there. Like my career in marketing to get there definitely wasn't linear. I did sales, I did innovation, but I actually think they helped me to be a better marketeer that I'd sort of squiggled before I was a marketeer. And so making those stories known to people, I think, gives people permission to explore their possibilities and not feel like they have to force fit themselves to one particular path to get where they want to go.
I absolutely love that. I love that thinking. And of course, encapsulated squiggly and stay. What a lovely
squiggly and stay. Great that more organizations are getting on the bus, because there needs to be a win-win out of all of this. So let's focus a bit on personal squiggliness. So Richie and I, we've both had our ups and downs, roundabouts in our careers. Let's find out about Helen's squiggly moments, some of the setbacks and how you recovered from those. You've said it's not all been perfect, so let's hear a bit about that.
You just want me to let it out now?
we warmed you up now, Helen. You see, you're good. Go for it.
How many non-perfect points in my squiggly career would you like me to reveal right now? All of them.
Just the top 10.
That's just the top 10, doesn't it? Working backwards from number 10. I think some of the not so perfect points in my squiggly career, almost challenging points, really. So the first was probably when I was trying to go from sales, which my career kind of started out in sales, really. I was on the Boots grad scheme, and then I went into sales, which I loved, because you kind of have your own little business in sales. You know, you have your own, your own territory, and it's quite commercial. It's about building relationships, and I loved all that. But I worked in sales for Britvic, and then I worked in sales for Procter & Gamble, working with these brands that I admired, that were in my house, and I was getting to talk to people about them, and I had my own little business. So that felt really good. But then what I started to realize was that I sort of loved the brands more. Like I was, I was at Procter & Gamble, it was Flash, and at Britvic, it was like Pepsi and Robinsons, and I loved those brands. And I sort of wanted to work on those brands. I was like, okay, I think I've done some stuff in sales. I want to go and take these ideas and this passion I've got for these products and like go work on the brands. And the challenge was, it was really hard to switch tracks originally. I remember like trying to go from sales to marketing, particularly early on in my career, was not an easy move to make. And I had thought, oh, but I'm doing a really good job over here in sales, and I'm really passionate about all your products. Can I not just go over there? And they were like, no, because you didn't study marketing. And we have a graduate scheme for marketeers, and that you went on that. And I was like, oh, this is strange and very frustrating. And so I kind of went into marketing via a kind of indirect route, which now I reflect really positively on, but at the time felt really uncomfortable. So I went to work for Capital One, and I went to marketing project management, where I got to kind of work on I remember I was working on like a rebrand for Capital One. And then I went to work in innovation. So kind of what I kind of think of as like front end of marketing. So more insight, test and learn propositions. And I loved all that, bring all my energy to it. And I did that for Capital One. I did that for Eon as part of an innovation, the new kind of startup innovation business for Eon. And then I sort of got myself into a marketing role, which is when I went to BP, and I was global head of marketing for energy and aviation lubricants or something like that. It's quite a long job title, and that was my first official marketing's on a business card job title. And then from then on, it kind of stayed on my business card for quite a long time. But then my point was that challenge of switching tracks, I think, is really hard for people, and that's what I think organizations should make easier, because I actually think I was a better marketer because I'd spent some time in sales and I had that commercial experience, and I understood what the challenges of getting a product on a shelf and what some of the considerations are of that shop or that cash and carry or that supermarket, about all that, the entire supply chain, and then getting in front of the customer. I understood that, and I could empathize a lot more with people because of that. And then in innovation, I was directly hearing from customers, that was so powerful, the test and learn and adapt and use their words in your marketing campaign. Don't use your words that you talk about in a meeting, because that makes no sense to them. Use their words. I remember we were doing a campaign, like an innovation when I was in Eon. It was around energy efficiency was a thing that I was working on, and someone was talking about that when they had a bath that was heated by their solar panel, it was like bathing in sunlight. Now, we didn't actually use that, but when we were trying to express what this meant to people, up until that point, it was energy efficiency. It saved you money to kind of have a solar panel. And then we realized actually there's this emotional thing that is going on for one segment of people when they feel like their water has been heated by the sun. It's very different. You go down a very different marketing campaign if that's the insight. Then someone can save £10 a month on whatever it be. And I was just a better marketer because of those moves that I had made. And I think if we can help organizations to make those moves, we can have better outcomes in organizations. So that was a pretty, what we call a knotty moment in a squiggly career that did get me to some other directions. I mean, I can keep sharing these challenges, but
that was number 10. That was a fantastic example there. And it's funny enough, integrated within that is a masterclass in how to do marketing and pick up emotions and really understand customers and be able to really use their language when thinking about campaigns. So there we go. You got a 2-in-1 in that answer there. I want to come on to the fact that when we talk about the term squiggly in itself, it almost feels like you've started, you're kind of navigating through something, and yet there are so many people today who are even struggling to even make the first dent into their careers. Young people suffering more than most through this pandemic and really trying to find their way, and probably not getting the opportunities to even get onto a squiggly sort of path. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think it is hard. I think it's hard at the start when you might feel like you should have the answers. So I think the best, I mean, who's got the answers? I haven't got the answers. I think we're creating people the space to explore and experiment and learn about themselves, I think is a very healthy environment for people, rather than be like, you've got to make the right decision at age 21. I don't know who makes the right decisions all the time. I think it's exploring and learning. I do think if people, because what we could talk about Squiggly, the staircase is quite comforting for people. As human beings, we like certainty. It's part of the reason the staircase is sort of stuck around as a concept, because it's quite simple, isn't it? Like, show up, go up a ladder, show up, work hard, go up a ladder, succeed. I mean, unfortunately, the reality is slightly different, but it's quite a simple concept that sort of resonates with people. And what we're saying, when we're talking about Squiggly, what we're not saying is, oh, but careers are now squiggly, so just try stuff out and see what happens. That also doesn't feel very comfortable for people. People do want some, sense of ownership and control. So what I would say is, and it's relevant advice for anyone at any time, particularly maybe if you're kind of starting out, is start to reflect on what it is you stand for. Like, and that's quite a big question at the beginning, but what is it that feels important to you? Like, what are some of the things that frustrate you or that energize you, or what did some sort of early insights into what you might stand for? Who can you stand with would be my other point. Like, the sooner you can find and build a community around your career, the more opportunities you'll get. Opportunities for learning, opportunities for roles and jobs. Like, so who are you going to start to stand with? Can you find a community, even if it's like your alumni from your university, or a network around something that you're really interested in doing? Like, try and start to stand with people who are passionate about the same things for you, and then think about what makes you stand out. I think, and sometimes you can ask other people that. You can say, I could say to you, Richie, oh, what's one word you would use to describe me? And so you might know that for yourself. You might think, oh, what makes Helen stand out? You might have that awareness, or you might think, I haven't got a clue. Don't worry, just go and ask other people. What stands out when you work with me? When do you see me at my best? Those sorts of questions. And in those insights around what you stand for and who you stand with and what makes you stand out, you can start to spark your career. You can start to think about, how can I make some moves that feel right for me with people who I benefit from working with and having an impact that feels important to me. And that would give you a very good start to a squiggly career, based on you and not what other people might think you should do.
So, Helen, I listened to you on a talk yesterday, which was very good, very inspiring as ever. And one of the things you talked about was boundaries. And so you're a kind of all-in type person. So how do you manage your boundaries?
Well, Mark, if you remember on that talk, I did say, of the three things that I was talking about, which was your personal brand, building your belief and boundaries, that was the one that I was worse at. So caveat.
I was listening.
Caveat. I know more about boundaries than I am good at putting them into place. I think I'm very conscious of them, and and sometimes I manage my boundaries better than other times. And it's partly because I can see in my career when I haven't done that and it hasn't been great for me. So there have been times where I have let work taken over sort of my life, and I've left some of the other aspects of what makes me to one side. My start point for this is often my values. So I have 4 core values, which are freedom, growth, energy, and achievement. And what I am very conscious of is I need all of those to be fulfilled for me to be at my best and to be happy. But they don't all have to be fulfilled by work. So when it's gone a bit, when my boundaries have gone a bit wrong, has either been when work has skewed towards one of those values more than another. So for example, the achievement value, when I'm in somewhere and I've gone, I am achieving, and then I've sort of left the other 3 things, the freedom, the growth, and the energy behind, and I'm just like, but I am achieving. But that's just a bit of me. These other bits of me are quite important. So I've got quite attuned to, don't let that achievement driver dominate. And then I've also started to realize that not all of those values have to be fulfilled by my day job. So actually, you know, who am I spending time with outside of work that gives me energy? How am I growing other people or other things outside of work, and place value on that? Because I think when all of you, which is your values, are connected to what you do, there's a bit of a danger in that, because you're slightly overexposed to the highs and the lows. You know, you become very dependent on the highs. Like every day has to be amazing, I have to be successful all the time, and those lows really affect you because you haven't got that perspective that you get, that your boundaries give you. So I really have to work on it, because it's almost harder running your own company, because I love what I do so much, and there is a lot of achievement, and so many of my values are fulfilled by what I do, but I just have to regularly reflect on, but what are you doing outside of that, and how are those values connect to things that you do outside of work? And it's just a very conscious calibration of my career to make sure that I am putting the boundaries in place that help me to be at my best. Otherwise, I can't sustain it for very long.
What fabulous 4 values there. And actually, I think you're speaking to the world of entrepreneurs, or intrapreneurs even, who really, you know, wear their careers on their sleeves and roll with the highs and lows sometimes that brings. And I think it's just such sound advice, particularly from a mental health perspective, to make sure you're spreading yourself a little bit wider than just simply focused on that one day job aspect of your life, and really try to look for fulfillment in all aspects. So what a lovely way to end the segment, Helen. It's just been absolutely fabulous to have you on this morning. I've been truly inspired, and what I'm going to try and do is try and summarize some of the key themes that I've taken away, and then I'll hand over to Mark for some of his key thoughts before we close. You clearly started out on the journey 2013 in terms of the career development aspect of things, and in that side project, Amazing If, Sarah Ellis. And made some amazingly brave decisions a couple of years later about, you know, when the right time was to get off the bus. And I love the analogy that you used. The funny thing is, I would have expected you to say, oh, you know, we'd achieved enough success that we thought, you know, we could compensate from one business to the next. That's not what you said. You actually said that there was a rubber band and you didn't want it to snap. And there were so many things going on in your life that you had to make choices. And the lens in which you chose to make those choices were through your children's eyes. I just thought it was just amazing insight around how to think about making some real career life defining moment changes based on what you think you want your kids to see you through. So I love that thought. You talked about actually maybe not putting as much pressure on yourself when making those decisions, particularly around side hustles. It's about going for it. It's about where could this lead? And it doesn't have to become Series A right through to Series E. That's not what it's about. And actually, if it all leads to some great career sort of learnings and career development, all the better for it. I think it's about making choice and control. Was what people are thinking about in this moment in time. And if, you know, anyone listening in is at that pivotal moment, you know, making smart decisions about where you best fit within the squiggles of your career. I think those 2 concepts, choice and control, are important. Organizations, beware. Squiggle and stay is here to stay, I would say. And how do we get sharper at doing that? Finally, I think the advice that you gave to young people was really insightful. The 3 core concepts: understand your values, who do you want to spend time with and do it with, and how do you stand out, are some great ways and reflection points about how do you start on the journey, or if you're midway through, forge a great career. So Helen, that's some of the things I've taken away. Been absolutely brilliant. I'll pass over to Mark for his close.
Yeah, thanks, Richie. And I think we've been truly blessed to have you on today, Helen. You are my pinnacle example of somebody who turned a side hustle into a career, and a stellar one at that. So that's just a thing. But my sense of talking to you this morning is, I mentioned the word generosity. I think there's a huge generosity in your approach to life and the world. Reiterate the point about through your children's eyes. I think we can all take some learning from that. It's about how would we be seen by others, is a good reference point. Come through with so much energy. You're a true thought leader in a really important space, because you know, careers are such an important part of people's lives, and so many gifts you've given. And so that all makes me think that what I'm left with is a true sense of congruence and resonance, that through the squiggles, you've kind of found the path for the place for you to be in the world, which so really warms the heart. So thank you very much for coming on the show. You've been brilliant, and as I said, we're all blessed to have you on. So